46 years. That's not just a number. That's a young man's entire life. Stolen, taken, erased. Richard Phillips was 26 years old when they put him behind those bars. He had dreams. He had a son. Here's what will break your heart. The police knew. His own friend knew. The man who actually pulled that trigger, he knew. And I need you to really feel this. Every morning, for 16,790 mornings, this man opened his eyes inside a prison cell. His mother waited for him. She waited and waited. She died waiting. She never saw her son come home. His son was just 2 years old when Richard went. By the time Richard walked out, that little boy was 50 years old. A grown man, a stranger, and Richard had missed every single day in between. But here's what makes Richard Phillips different from every other story you've ever heard. He didn't break. He didn't lose his mind. He picked up a pencil, and he wrote poetry every single day for 46 years. Because his words were the only thing in this world they could not lock away. This is not a movie. This is not fiction. This happened. This is the true story of Richard Phillips. And it begins in Detroit. 1971.
March 1971, a normal Tuesday night. Richard was home, unaware that across town, his entire future was being destroyed. Fred Mitchell and another man robbed a store that night. A man was killed, and Fred, to save himself, gave police one name, Richard Phillips, plus made a deal and pointed his finger at his best friend, the man who trusted him most. They stopped looking. They stopped asking closed before it even started. That's all they had. One man who was lying. And the entire system believed him. Richard was brought in for a lineup. He stood there, calm, because innocent men don't panic. They trust the system. Richard trusted the system. The detective nodded, and in that one moment, Richard Phillips was erased from the free world forever. He kept saying, "I was home. I have witnesses. I didn't do this." But nobody wrote it down. Nobody followed up. Nobody cared. 19. The evidence that proved Richard's innocence. The detective buried it, locked it away, and it would stay hidden for the next 40 years. Richard Phillips walked into that courtroom believing, truly believing, that the truth would set him free. He had no idea what was waiting for him. The trial began. A young man's entire life, reduced to 6 days in a courtroom. For a man's life.
Where are the rest of the documents?
They haven't arrived. They won't make it in time. We're going in empty.
Yes, Your Honor. I saw him with the weapon in his hand.
Objection, Your Honor. The witness is lying. Overruled. Please continue.
No investigation. No fight. Richard was alone in that courtroom. Completely alone. The jury...
I saw the evidence with my own eyes. He had the weapon.
Richard, it's bad. They've got us cornered.
But I told you I didn't do it. There has to be something else.
We don't have enough. This is bad.
What are you saying? Just stay calm. There's not much we can do.
Richard gripped that table. His heart was pounding. This was the moment. This was when truth would finally win. 9.9. Guilty. One word. And everything, absolutely everything, was gone. He didn't cry. He just sat there, completely still, because some pain is too big for tears. That first night in prison, Richard lay on that thin mattress, staring at the ceiling, listening to the silence. Understand how this happened. The cell was 6 feet wide, 9 feet long. This was his world now, this tiny concrete box. He was 26. He had a son, a 2-year-old boy who would grow up without his father. Because of a lie.
Be strong, baby. I'm doing everything I can from out here. I miss you.
Years passed, then decades. Richard watched young men come in and leave, but his door never opened. He filed appeal after appeal. 11 times, Every single one rejected. So he picked up a pencil, not to beg, not to plead. He wrote poetry, page after page. Year after year, his words became his only freedom. Outside those walls, the world changed completely. New presidents, new technology, new generations. Inside, Richard's walls never moved. Then one day, his mother stopped coming. She had waited 30 years. She died never seeing her son walk free. Richard wasn't even allowed to attend her funeral. He was now 60-year-old. His hair had turned white. His body had aged. Any era had passed. Richard was now in his 60s. Most men would have given up. Richard never did. Then, in 2016, a young law student named Claudia Whitman pulled Richard's file. What she found in the first hour changed everything. The buried evidence, the false lineup, the witness deal. It was all there, hidden in plain sight. For 40 years, nobody had looked. Nobody had cared enough to look. She called her professor, then a lawyer, then the Michigan Innocence Clinic. Within weeks, a team was fighting for Richard Phillips for the very first time. And then, Fred Mitchell finally broke. 40 years of silence. 40 years of letting his best friend rot. And finally, he told the truth. He signed a sworn affidavit. Richard Phillips had nothing to do with that crime. He was home then. Fred Mitchell had done it alone and blamed his best friend to save himself. As detective who buried the evidence, was long retired, living comfortably. While Richard had spent 46 years paying for that man's corruption, Richard was called to a meeting with his new lawyers. For the first time in 46 years, someone sat across from him and said, "We believe you. We are going to get you out." He didn't celebrate. He didn't smile. He had been disappointed too many times. He simply nodded and said, "Thank you for seeing me." The case was taken back to court, and this time, the truth had nowhere left to hide. The courtroom was different this time. Same walls, same plaque, same seats. This time, someone was fighting for Richard Phillips.
12. This is not a coincidence, Your Honor. This is a pattern of deception designed to mislead the court.
Look at this man. 46 years, Your Honor. 46 years he has waited for justice.
A judge listened. For the first time in Richard's life, someone with power actually listened.
We hereby admit that the testimony provided on the 5th of November was entirely fabricated. We ask for the court's mercy.
Richard sat at that table, the same kind of table he had sat at 46 years ago. But this time, his hands were not trembling.
You
This time,
are innocent.
one word. The same courtroom that destroyed him now set him free. One single word. His lawyer reached over and grabbed his hand. Richard looked
You
at her.
haven't been touched in 46 years?
No.
Goodbye, old friend. 46 years. Long time. Glad to go. Sad to leave.
I never thought I'd see this day. Richard, over here. How do you feel?
46 years of a man's life in one small bag. Just open air. He had forgotten what open air felt like. His lawyer drove him to a park. Richard sat on a bench and watched pigeons walk on grass. He watched them for 45 minutes. Without moving, without speaking. Simple things. A paper cup of coffee, wind on his face, the sound of traffic. Things you and I never notice. Richard experienced them like they were miracles. Then came the moment Richard had both dreamed of and feared. His son was waiting. A 50-year-old man who had grown up without his father.
Dad? Son. I've waited so long. Me too, I'm sorry. I haven't seen one this close in decades. It's worth the wait, isn't it, Dad?
That night, Richard slept in a real bed, with real sheets, in a room with no bars, no locks, no guards. Afraid it would disappear. He was 72 years old, with stage 4 cancer, with no money, no home. Richard had written over 2,000 poems inside that prison. 2,000 poems, each one a piece of his soul pressed onto paper. When the world refused to listen, people read them. And for the first time, the world saw Richard Phillips not as a criminal, but as a human being, a poet.
As you can see, we have the signed settlement agreement right here. This represents a significant victory for our clients.
No amount of money gives back a mother. No check returns 46 birthdays. Number settlement buys back the years his son grew up without him. Money cannot touch what was taken. The detective who buried the evidence never faced criminal charges. He died a free man, comfortable, respected. Richard rotted in his cell.
You know, anger, it's a prison too.
Think about that. This man, who had every right to be consumed by rage, chose to walk out of that emotional prison too. That is not weakness. That is the most extraordinary strength any human being can show. His son said, "I spent 48 years being angry at a system that took my father. But watching my father choose peace taught me more than anything he could have said." He spends his days writing, reading, sitting in parks, watching birds, doing all the things a free man does, things he dreamed of for 46 years. And every single morning, he wakes up, opens his eyes, and the walls are not there. And Richard Phillips smiles. "72 years old, with cancer, with nothing, but with something no prison could ever touch, his dignity, his words." From 26 to 72, that is not just a number. That is a young man's entire life, his son's entire childhood, his mother's entire remaining years. The moment a 72-year-old father and his 50-year-old son stood at a zoo, watching a giraffe together. Nobody can ever take that moment back. 96, Breaks chose poetry over bitterness, peace over rage, life over surrender. In doing so, he became something no corrupt system could ever create. He became free, truly free. Tonight, somewhere in America, there is an innocent person behind bars, waiting for someone to look at their file. Richard asked us for one thing. Remember me, not as a prisoner, not as a victim. Remember me as a poet, as a father, as a man who survived the unsurvivable, and still chose love. If this story moved you, share it right now. Because Richard spent 46 years invisible. Every share makes sure he is never invisible again. He deserves to be seen. Help us show him to the world. Subscribe for more stories like this. Next week,